In the hush of twilight, where the stars whisper secrets to the weary earth, a question rises soft as a sigh, yet heavy as the mountains. Whither wanders the spirit of Sauron? Not the Dark Lord, who forged the One Ring in the fires of Mount Doom, nor the eye that burned above the blackened spires of Barad-dûr, but the shadow of his essence, the wraith of his malice set adrift when the ring was unmade. On that fateful day, the 25th of March, in the year 3019 of the Third Age, the earth groaned, and a vast darkness soared, a towering shape of shadow, lightning-crowned, stretching across the heavens. It reached out a hand of dread, terrible yet impotent. And then a wind came, none could name its source. Was it Manwë's breath, sent from the heights of Tanicatil to scatter the last vestige of evil? Was it the will of Ilúvatar stirring the music of creation to silence a discordant note? Or was it the sigh of Arda herself, weary of her wounds, casting off the chains of dominion that had bound her for ages? The question is not of paths trodden or places hidden, but of being what becomes of a soul when its strength is broken, its legacy scattered like ash, its voice reduced to a whisper in the void. For Sauron was no mere tyrant, no mortal king cloaked in ambition. He was Mairon, a Maya born of Ilúvatar's thought, a spirit who sang in the Ainulindale before the world was shaped, before the stars were kindled, before the first dawn broke over the formless deep. His fall was no sudden plunge into darkness, but a slow turning adrift from the harmony of creation to the discord of dominion, a choice to forsake the light for a dream of order absolute. In his tale, we see our own, the temptation to bind the world to our will, the fear of losing what we hold dear, the burden of choices that echo beyond our days, shaping the tapestry of time. His spirit, now formless, haunts us not as a foe to be fought, but as a mirror reflecting the frailty and fire of the human soul, the shadow and the spark that dwell within us all. Let us journey then not to the ashen wastes of Mordor, where the air is thick with the memory of despair, nor to the silver shores of Valinor, where the light of the two trees lingers in the songs of the Eldar, but into the shadowed chambers of the heart, where courage flickers like a candle against the weight of despair, where hope contends with the silence that follows loss. For Middle-earth is more than a land of elves and men, of hobbits and heroes. It is the stage of the soul's striving, where every tale of Frodo's burden, of Aragorn's faith, of Galadriel's exile, of Bilbo's pity, speaks to the eternal dance of light and shadow, the ceaseless interplay of fear and hope, of temptation and redemption. Sauron's spirit, diminished to a vanishing point, wanders still a wraith, gnawing itself in the shadows, as Gandalf the White foretold in the halls of Minas Tirith. But where does it drift? In the ruins of Barad-dûr, where the wind carries the dust of his fallen towers, in the void alongside Melkor, until the world's end breaks the silence of eternity. Or in the quiet corners of our world, for Middle-earth is our earth, its tales woven into the fabric of our history, its shadows lingering in the places where we dare to dream. The question is a song, a note in the music of Ilúvatar, and we must sing it not to find an answer, but to understand the asking. For in the asking, we uncover the truths that bind us to Arda, to the heroes who walked its paths, to the shadows that tested their hearts. Let us begin then, at the dawn of time, when the world was young and the music shaped the stars. In the beginning, before the stars were kindled, before the seas were parted or the mountains raised, there was Eru, the one who dwelt in the timeless halls, his thought a flame imperishable. From his mind sprang the Ainur, the Holy One's spirits of light and fire, each a note in the symphony of existence. They sang the Ainulindale, the great music, a tapestry of harmony and discord weaving the vision of Arda, the world that would be. The Valar, mightiest among them, shaped the earth, while the Maiar, their lesser kin, embodied aspects of their master's power. Among these was Mairon, servant of Ola the smith, whose heart burned with a love for craft and order, for the precision of hammer on anvil, for the beauty of stone, shaped to enduring form. In the forges of the world, Mairon wrought wonders' spires that caught the starlight rings that gleamed with the fire of creation, vessels of crystal that held the dew of the first dawn. His mind was sharp, delighting in patterns, in the symmetry of the world's design, yet within him stirred a restlessness, a hunger not for creation, but for mastery. He saw the wildness of Arda, the untamed rivers, the forests that grew without rule, the children of Ilúvatar, who walked free, and his heart yearned to order them, to bend them to a vision of perfection unyielding. This is the first shadow upon the soul, the temptation to tame the chaos of life, to chain the future to our desires, to impose a will that brooks no dissent. We know it in our quiet moments when we seek to control the unknown, to hold the world fast against its turning, fearing the freedom that defies our grasp. When Melkor, the mightiest of the Valar, raised his voice in discord, a song of rebellion that shook the music, Mairon hearkened, not to chaos, for his heart was not wild, but to power, to the promise of a world shaped by a single mind. Melkor's vision was destruction, but Mairon's was order, a realm where all things moved in harmony, directed by his hand. He forsook all his master, and joined Melkor in the dark halls of Utumno, where the fires burned cold and the air was thick with treachery. There he learned the arts of deception, the craft of dominion, the weaving of lies that could sway the hearts of elves and men. He became Sauron the Abhorred. Yet his ambition was not mere cruelty. It was a dream of perfection, a world without flaw, without freedom, without the messiness of life. In the First Age, when Melkor was chained by the Valar, Sauron fled, hiding in the shadows of Middle-earth, his power undimmed, his will unbroken. He waited as a spider waits, spinning webs of patience until the time was ripe. In the Second Age he rose cloaked in fair form as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, his countenance radiant, his words honeyed. To the elves of Eregion he brought knowledge, secrets of craft that stirred their hearts. With Celebrimbor, greatest of smiths, he forged the rings of power, 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, 9 for men, each a marvel, each a chain. But in the fires of Mount Doom, in the heart of Mordor, Sauron wrought the One Ring, pouring into it his essence, his power, his very being. It was no mere trinket, but his heart made manifest, a vessel for his will, a tool to bind all others to his command. The One Ring was Sauron's triumph and his tragedy. It amplified his power, bending the wearers of the other rings to his will, but it tethered his fate to its existence. In its making he wove his own undoing, for no chain, however mighty, can hold forever. The elves sensed his treachery, hiding their 3 rings, and the men of Númenor rose against him. When Ar-Pharazôn, king of Númenor, captured Sauron, it seemed his end. Yet with cunning words, Sauron turned captivity to conquest, corrupting Númenor's heart, leading them to worship Melkor and sail against Valinor. Eru intervened, and the world was changed. Númenor sank beneath the sea, and Sauron's body perished. Yet his spirit fled, clinging to the ring, the anchor of his power. It took years to rebuild his form, and when he did, he could no longer take fair shapes. He was bound to the grim visage of the Dark Lord, a towering figure of iron and flame, his hand blackened where the ring rested. In the last alliance, he faced Gil-galad and Elendil, and though he slew them, Isildur cut the ring from his hand. His spirit fled formless, hiding in waste places for 1,000 years. When he rose again in the Third Age, he was a shadow yet still mighty, rebuilding Barad-dûr, spreading his will through the Nazgûl. The ring's existence sustained him even when lost, for it held his essence, his power, his dream of dominion. Sauron's temptation is ours. We forge our own rings, ambitions, desires, dreams of control, seeking to order our lives, our loves, our legacies. Yet in our striving we bind ourselves, creating chains that weigh upon the soul. The ring was a mirror reflecting the heart of its maker, but also the hearts of those who bore it. It whispered of power, of safety, of the strength to shape the world. But its voice was a lie, serving only Sauron, even when parted from his hand. In its fire we see the peril of pride, the cost of seeking dominion over what must remain free. Consider Frodo Baggins, the Ringbearer, whose small hands carried the weight of Sauron's malice. In the Shire he knew only the laughter of hobbits, the green of the fields, the warmth of a hearth under the hill. His days were filled with the songs of Bilbo, his uncle tales of dragons and distant lands, the quiet joys of a life untroubled by shadow. Yet fate, or the subtle hand of Ilúvatar, called him to a path unchosen. The ring came to him unbidden, passed from Bilbo's hand in a moment of reluctance, a burden that seemed small but grew heavy. With each day, Gandalf's words in Bag End were a summons not to glory but to sacrifice. The ring must be destroyed, and Frodo must bear it. Frodo's journey was not one of conquest, but of endurance, of bearing a weight that pressed upon his soul, body, and mind. The ring was no mere object. It was alive with Sauron's will, a malevolent force that whispered of power, of safety, of the strength to protect all he loved. Its weight was not of gold, but of malice, growing heavier with each step, as if the mountain itself rested upon his neck. In Rivendell, at the Council of Elrond, the great and wise debated, their voices ringing with plans and fears. Frodo sat small among them, his heart quaking. Yet when silence fell, his voice rose soft but resolute. "I will take the ring, though I do not know the way." His choice was not born of courage but of duty, a quiet acceptance of a burden none else could bear. With the fellowship of the ring, Frodo set out a hobbit among heroes, Aragorn the heir of kings, Gandalf the wizard of ancient lore, Legolas the elf whose eyes saw far, Gimli the dwarf whose heart was stout, Boromir the man of Gondor proud and burdened, and Merry and Pippin his kin whose laughter lightened his heart. Through the snows of Caradhras, where the mountain's wrath drove them back, through the darkness of Moria, where Gandalf fell to the Balrog's fire, through the golden woods of Lothlorien, where Galadriel's gaze pierced his soul, Frodo walked the ring, a constant weight, its voice a constant whisper. In Lorien, Galadriel offered him a glimpse of her own temptation, her own refusal of the ring, and gave him the phial of Erendil's light, a star to guide him in the dark. The fellowship broke at Amon Hen, torn by Boromir's fall to the ring's lure. Frodo fled alone, but for Sam, his faithful friend, who swore to follow him even to the ends of the earth. In the Emin Muil, as they wandered through jagged stone, Frodo felt the ring's pull, its voice urging him to claim it, to wield it, to become more than a hobbit. In the dead marshes, he saw the faces of the fallen, their eyes accusing their silence, a warning of the cost of failure. On the stairs of Cirith Ungol, with Gollum's treachery at his heels, he feared betrayal, the shadow of his own weakness. Gollum, once Smeagol, was a mirror of the ring's power, a creature consumed by its promise, his life a warning of what Frodo might become. In Shelob's lair, bound in her webs, Frodo felt the despair of the lost, the silence of a world without hope. The ring's weight was unbearable, its voice deafening, promising salvation if he would only yield. Yet Sam, ever steadfast, wielded Galadriel's phial, its light banishing the spider's malice, and carried Frodo from the dark, in the wastes of Mordor, where the air was ash and the ground cracked with heat. Frodo's strength failed. The ring was all its will consuming his own, its whispers drowning out the memory of the Shire. Sam spoke of home, of spring, of the tales that would be told, but Frodo could barely hear, his eyes fixed on the fiery mountain ahead. At the cracks of doom within the heart of Orodruin, Frodo stood, the ring in his hand, its voice a roar. He had borne it through fear, through pain, through the shadow of death. But at the last he faltered. "I have come," he said, "but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. The ring is mine." In that moment Frodo fell not to Sauron, but to himself, to the temptation that had haunted him since Bag End. Yet the tale did not end in despair. Gollum, wretched and redeemed, wrested the ring from Frodo, dancing in mad joy, and in his triumph he fell into the fire. The ring was unmade, its power dissolved, and Sauron's dominion collapsed. Frodo's failure was his salvation, a reminder that even the weakest may shape the music that Ilúvatar's will works through the flaws of the heart. The cost was great. Frodo returned to the Shire, but it was no longer home. The fields were green, the streams bright, but his heart bore wounds no eye could see. The ring had taken a part of him, a piece that could not be restored. In Rivendell he found no peace. In the Shire, no rest. He wrote his tale in the Red Book, passing it to Sam. But the joy of storytelling could not heal him. On the 22nd of September in the year 3021, he sailed west to the Undying Lands where healing might be found. Loss is the shadow of sacrifice, the price of bearing what others cannot. Frodo's tale is not one of glory, but of quiet endurance of a soul that gave all and asked nothing in return. Samwise was Frodo's anchor, his hope, his heart. When Frodo faltered, Sam carried him not with strength of arm, but with the quiet faith of friendship. In Mordor, when the ring's weight bowed Frodo to the ground, Sam spoke of the Shire of Spring, of the tales that would be told. "I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frodo," he said, "but I can carry you in Sam. We see the light that fear cannot quench, the light of loyalty, of love that asks no reward." His was the hope of the humble, the faith of the gardener, who plants seeds he may never see bloom. When Frodo sailed west, Sam remained planting the seed of Galadriel's gift, raising a family, living the life Frodo could not. In Sam we see the heart of Middle-earth, the strength that endures beyond the shadow. What of Sauron, whose spirit watched from Barad-dûr his eye, ever searching a flame of malice that pierced the hearts of those who felt its gaze? Did he know fear as Frodo did? Once, perhaps, when Númenor fell and the sea swallowed his form, he tasted the terror of loss. In the Second Age, as Annatar, he had walked among the men of Númenor, his words a poison that turned their hearts to pride. He led them to worship Melkor, to build a temple of darkness, to sail against Valinor in defiance of the Valar. But Eru intervened and the world was changed. A great chasm opened and Númenor sank beneath the waves, its towers and gardens lost forever. Sauron's body perished, his fair form drowned, yet his spirit fled, clinging to the ring, the anchor of his power. It took years to rebuild his form, a decade of gathering strength in the shadows of Middle-earth. When he returned, he could no longer take fair shapes, his deceit stripped away by Eru's wrath. He was bound to the grim visage of the Dark Lord, a towering figure of iron and flame, his hand blackened where the ring rested, his eyes burning with a hatred that never slept. In Mordor he raised Barad-dûr anew, its foundations rooted in the earth's fire, its spires piercing the sky. He forged armies of orcs, bred trolls of cunning and malice, and sent his Nazgûl the ring-wraiths to hunt the ring that had been lost. For though Isildur had taken it, the ring endured hidden in the waters of Anduin, its power sustaining Sauron even in his diminished state. In the last alliance, at the end of the Second Age, Sauron faced the might of elves and men. On the slopes of Mount Doom, he met Gil-galad, High King of the Elves, and Elendil, Lord of the Dúnedain. Their blades were bright, their hearts unyielding, but Sauron's power was terrible. He slew them both, his mace shattering their hopes, but Isildur, Elendil's son, took up his father's broken sword, Narsil, and cut the ring from Sauron's hand. The Dark Lord fell, his body broken, his spirit, fleeing into the waste places of the world, formless and powerless, for 1,000 years. The ring was lost, taken by Isildur, who refused to destroy it, and Sauron's hope endured for as long as the ring existed. He could rise again. In the Third Age, Sauron returned a shadow in Dol Guldur, a whisper in the darkness of Mirkwood. The White Council drove him out, but he fled to Mordor, rebuilding Barad-dûr, gathering his strength. The ring found by Gollum passed to Bilbo, then to Frodo, and Sauron's fear grew, not of death, but of powerlessness, of a world slipping beyond his grasp. His eye searched, his Nazgûl hunted, and his armies marched, for he believed the ring was near. When Frodo and Sam entered Mordor, when they climbed Orodruin, Sauron's heart quaked, for he sensed the peril. And when the ring was unmade, when the fires of Mount Doom consumed it, his world collapsed. His towers crumbled their stones, falling like tears into the dust. His armies fled, their will broken, their purpose scattered. His spirit rose, a vast shadow stretching across the sky, lightning-crowned, reaching out in a final act of malice. But it was impotent, a wraith caught by the wind, scattered to the edges of the world. In The Return of the King, Gandalf speaks of this fate. If it is destroyed, then he will fall, and his fall will be so low that none can foresee his arising ever again. he will be maimed forever, becoming a mere spirit of malice that gnaws itself in the shadows but cannot again grow or take shape. In Tolkien's letter 131, he writes that Sauron's being would be diminished to vanishing point, a shadow, a mere memory of malicious will. Silence is the shadow's triumph, the void where hope once sang. To wander as a spirit formless and unheard is to know the exile of the soul cast out from the world it sought to rule. Sauron's spirit, diminished to a vanishing point, lingers as a wraith, unable to wield influence, unable to grow or take form. His torment is eternal, for as a Maya, his essence cannot perish. He must endure powerless in a world he cannot touch. He sought to impose order to bind the freedom of Arda's children, and now he witnesses their liberty, their chaos, their joy, a world that dances beyond his grasp, a symphony he cannot silence. This is his punishment, to be a spectator of the music he forsook, to gnaw himself in the shadows, cursed by the freedom he could not abide. Does he drift in the wastes of Mordor, where the wind carries the dust of his fallen towers, where the air is heavy with the memory of his malice? Does he haunt the edges of our world, for Middle-earth is our earth, its tales woven into the fabric of our history? Tolkien mused in Morgoth's Ring that a Maya reduced to impotence might become a poltergeist, a weak spirit stirring the air with whispers of spite, moving objects in the dark, making noises to unsettle the unwary. Yet Gandalf's words suggest a deeper silence, a powerlessness so complete that Sauron cannot act, only endure, a wraith bound to the shadows, watching as the world turns without him. His spirit is a warning, a mirror of the soul that seeks control and finds only emptiness, a reminder that the chains we forge bind us first. Exile is no stranger to Middle-earth, a land where the stars themselves seem to weep for the sundered. The elves, born of starlight, in the dawn of the world, knew its sting most keenly. In the First Age, when Fëanor, greatest of the Noldor, swore his oath to reclaim the Silmarils, he bound his kin to a fate of sorrow. The Silmarils' jewels, wrought by Fëanor's hand, held the light of the two trees of Valinor, a radiance that burned with the memory of creation. When Melkor stole them, slaying Finwë, Fëanor's father, and fled to Middle-earth, Fëanor's heart blazed with a fire that could not be quenched. His oath was a vow of vengeance, binding himself and his sons to pursue the jewels at any cost, defying even the Valar. "This swear we all," he cried, "death we will deal to any who hold the Silmarils, be they elfman or Maya." The Noldor's march from Valinor was a song of fire and sorrow, a rebellion against the will of Ilúvatar, driven by a love too fierce, a pride too sharp. They crossed the grinding ice of the Helcaraxi, their feet bleeding, their hearts heavy with the kinslaying at Alqualondë, where they shed the blood of their Tellerin kin to seize their ships. In Beleriand they built kingdoms of splendor, Gondolin hidden in its ring of mountains, where Turgon ruled in secret, Nargothrond carved in stone, where Finrod wove beauty, Doriath guarded by Melion's girdle, where Thingol and Melion reigned. Yet the shadow of Fëanor's oath haunted them, a legacy of blood and betrayal, driving kinslaying and war, tearing the elves apart. Finrod Felagund, the friend of men, was a light among the Noldor. In Nargothrond he built a realm of beauty, its halls echoing with songs of Valinor. When Barahir of the House of Beor saved him in the Dagor, Bragolach, Finrod swore an oath, giving Barahir a ring as a token of his vow. Years later, Beren Barahir's son came to Nargothrond seeking aid in his quest for the Silmaril set in Thingol's crown. Finrod honoured his vow, though it meant leaving his people, defying the sons of Fëanor, who coveted the jewel. With Beren, he faced Sauron on the Isle of Tol in Garhoth, where the Maya's sorcery was strong. Finrod sang a song of Valinor, a melody of light, but Sauron countered with a chant of treachery, and a werewolf slew Finrod's companions one by one. In the darkness, Finrod fought, slaying the beast with his hands and teeth, but he fell, his body broken, his spirit passing to the halls of Mandos. His faith in Ilúvatar remained unshaken, yet his heart was pierced by loss, the cost of a promise kept. Galadriel, Finrod's sister, crossed the grinding ice with her brothers, her heart burning with pride, her mind set on a realm of her own. In the First Age she dwelt in Doriath, learning wisdom from Melian, but the shadow of the oath followed her. In the Third Age, she ruled Lothlorien, a haven of light, its golden malorns a memory of Valinor. Yet the ring's temptation tested her. When Frodo offered her the one, she saw a vision of herself as a queen, beautiful and terrible, all bowing before her. "All shall love me and despair," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of possibility. But she refused her laughter, soft, her eyes clear. "I pass the test. I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel." Her choice was a release, a letting go of dominion for faith, of power for hope. When she sailed to Valinor, she left Lothlorien to wither, her power dimmed but her heart free. She understood what Sauron could not: to cling to control is to court silence, to seek dominion is to invite loss. Legacy is a chain forged in the fires of our choices. Feanor's oath bound his sons to ruin, driving them to madness, to kinslaying, to death. The Silmarils' jewels of light became a curse, their radiance a fire that consumed those who sought them. Sauron's ring was his legacy, a chain that bound him to his fall, its destruction scattering his dreams to the wind. We too carry legacies of words, spoken of deeds, done of dreams we dare not release. What do we leave behind when our time is done? The elves in their fading teach us that legacy is not in what we hold, but in what we release. Galadriel's departure was a surrender not to defeat, but to the music, to the hope that light endures beyond the shadow. Finrod's death was a gift, not a loss, for his sacrifice bore fruit in Beron's quest, in the line of Elrond, in the hope of men. The elves' exile was not only of place but of spirit. They were bound to ardour, their immortality, a gift and a burden, their hearts yearning for Valinor, yet tied to Middle-earth. When the Third Age ended, many sailed west, their ships gleaming under the stars, but others lingered, their songs fading in the forests, their light dimming as men rose. Their exile was a mirror of our own, for we too are exiles wandering in a world that is not our home, seeking a light we cannot name, bearing the weight of choices that shape our paths. Bilbo Baggins. Frodo's uncle was no hero in the songs of elves, yet his tale is a thread in the music, a note of pity that changed the world. In the Third Age, when he set out with Thorin Oakenshield and the dwarves of Erebor, he was a hobbit of comfort, his pantry full, his heart content. Yet Gandalf's knock at his door stirred something deeper, a longing for adventure, for the world beyond the Shire. In the tunnels of the misty mountains, lost and alone, Bilbo found the ring, a small thing glinting in the dark, taken from Gollum's hoard. It was chance or fate or Ilúvatar's will that brought it to him, but it was pity that shaped its path. Gollum, wretched and lost, pursued Bilbo, his eyes gleaming with hunger for his precious Bilbo, invisible by the ring's power, held a sword to Gollum's throat, yet he did not strike. "What a pity I did not kill him then," he later said. But in that moment his heart recoiled. He was so miserable, Bilbo thought, and I was so frightened. Pity stayed his hand, a small act that echoed through the ages. Without it, Gollum would not have lived to guide Frodo, to wrestle the ring from him, to fall into the fire that unmade it. Bilbo's pity was a spark, a light that Sauron could not foresee, a choice that defied the shadow. Pity is the heart's defiance, the refusal to let despair rule. Bilbo carried the ring for years, its weight subtle but growing, yet he bore it lightly, his heart untainted by its malice. When he left the Shire, passing the ring to Frodo, he did so with reluctance but also with love, trusting his nephew to bear what he could not. In Rivendell he grew old, his songs a comfort, his tales a legacy. Bilbo's pity was his strength, a quiet courage that shaped the fate of Middle-earth. In his tale we see our own moments of mercy, the choices to spare, to forgive, to see the light in another's darkness. Gollum, once Sméagol, was the ring's victim, and its servant, a mirror of its power and its peril. In the Third Age, long before Bilbo's time, Sméagol was a hobbit-like creature living by the Anduin, his heart simple, his days filled with fishing and laughter. The ring came to him, dropped by Isildur in the river's depths, and its lure was immediate. Smeagol killed his friend Deagol to claim it, his heart twisting in an instant, his love for the ring consuming all else. He fled to the misty mountains, hiding in the dark, his body wasting, his mind fracturing. The ring was his precious, his life, his curse, prolonging his years, but stealing his soul. Gollum's tale is a tragedy, a warning of what the ring could do to any heart. He was not evil by nature, but weak, his will bending to the ring's malice. For centuries he dwelt in shadow, his love for the ring, a torment, his hatred for it, a mirror of his self-loathing. When Bilbo took the ring, Gollum's purpose became pursuit, a desperate need to reclaim what he had lost. In the Third Age he followed Frodo, his eyes gleaming with hunger, his heart torn between desire and despair. Frodo's kindness stirred memories of Smeagol, a flicker of the hobbit he had been, but the ring's hold was too strong. In Mordor, Gollum guided Frodo and Sam, his treachery a shadow over their path. On the stairs of Cirith Ungol, he led them to Shelob, hoping to reclaim the ring from their corpses. Yet his plan failed, and Frodo's survival was a wound to his heart at the cracks of doom. When Frodo claimed the ring, Gollum's desperation peaked. He wrestled it from Frodo, dancing in mad joy, and in that moment he fell the ring and he consumed by the fire. Gollum's end was redemption, not of his heart, but of his role, for without him the ring would not have been destroyed. His tale is a mirror of the self of the shadow within us, all the part that clings to what destroys us, the weakness that can yet serve the light. Faith is a fragile thing, a star glimpsed through storm clouds, a note in the music that holds against the discord. Aragorn, son of Arathorn, walked its path, his life, a testament to endurance. He was the heir of Isildur, the last hope of a kingdom broken long ago. Yet his crown was no promise, only a burden. In the wilds as a ranger, he bore the weight of doubt, the fear that his line would fail, that Gondor would fall to Sauron's shadow. His love for Arwen, daughter of Elrond, was a light, yet also a chain for her immortality, bound her to his mortal fate. In Rivendell, Elrond's words were stern. "You must be more than a ranger, if you would wed my daughter." Aragorn's path was not one of certainty, but of striving of faith in a world he served. Through the War of the Ring, Aragorn walked with the Fellowship, his sword, Andúril a flame reforged from Narsil, his heart a beacon for those who followed. In the paths of the dead, he summoned the Oathbreakers, his will bending their cursed spirits to his cause. At the Pelennor fields, he fought beside Éomer and Imrahil, his banner unfurled, a sign of hope against despair. At the Black Gate, facing Sauron's host with no hope of victory, he chose to fight not for triumph, but for the chance that Frodo might succeed. His cry. For Frodo was a prayer, a defiance of despair, a vow to stand, though the world fell. His was the faith of the steadfast, the courage to act when all seems lost. In his coronation, when he found the white tree blooming in the court of Minas Tirith, Aragorn saw a sign of renewal, not for himself, but for the world. His reign was not one of conquest, but of healing, of binding the wounds of a land long torn. Yet his faith was tested by loss. For Arwen chose mortality, her life tied to his, her light fading as his grew. Their love was a sacrifice, a hope that burned brighter than the shadow. Aragorn's tale is one of faith, not in victory, but in the music. In the belief that light follows darkness, that the world turns, though the heart breaks. Temptation, though, is faith's shadow, a whisper that tests the soul. Sauron's ring was its voice speaking to all who came near Boromir. Son of Denethor, steward of Gondor, heard its call, his heart fierce with love for his city. Gondor was his life, its walls, his duty, its people, his burden. The ring promised strength, a way to save his city, to drive back Sauron's armies, to restore Gondor's glory. At the Council of Elrond, Boromir's voice was proud, urging the ring's use, believing it a weapon for the wise. Yet Gandalf and Elrond knew its truth. The ring served only Sauron, its power a lie that corrupted all who wielded it. On the slopes of Amon Hen, Boromir fell to the ring's lure. He pleaded with Frodo, his voice desperate, his eyes wild. "Lend me the ring, and I will save us all." In that moment, he was not Boromir, but a shadow of Sauron's will. His love twisted into desire, his duty into ambition. Frodo fled invisible, and Boromir wept, his heart breaking under the weight of his shame. Yet his fall was not his end. When orcs attacked, he fought alone, his horn ringing through the forest, defending Merry and Pippin with his life. His last words to Aragorn were a confession. "I tried to take the ring from Frodo. I am sorry." In his sacrifice, he reclaimed his honor, proving that temptation does not define us. It is the choice to turn from it, to give all for others, that shapes the soul. Boromir's tale is ours, for we too hear the ring's whisper in our moments of weakness, when need becomes greed, when care becomes control. His redemption is a light, a reminder that even the fallen may rise, that the heart can find its way back to the music. Aragorn's faith and Boromir's temptation are two sides of the soul, the strength to endure and the frailty that tests it, the light and shadow that dance within us all. Gandalf, the Grey Pilgrim, was no mere wanderer, but a Mire, like Sauron, sent by the Valar to kindle hope in the hearts of Middle-earth's children. As Olorin, he dwelt in Valinor, learning wisdom from Eomo and pity from Nienna, his heart attuned to the music. When the Valar chose the Istari, he was reluctant, fearing his own weakness, but Manwë's command was clear: go and contest the will of Sauron. In Middle-earth, Gandalf walked as a man, his power veiled, his staff a guide, his words a spark. He was not a warrior, but a light-stirring courage in those who faltered, from the hobbits of the Shire to the kings of Gondor. In Moria, on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, Gandalf faced the Balrog, a demon of fire and shadow, a remnant of Melkor's malice. "You cannot pass," he cried, his staff blazing his voice, a thunder that shook the stone. The Balrog fell, but Gandalf was pulled into the abyss, his body broken, his light dimmed, yet his sacrifice was not his end. In the heights of Ziraxigil, he fought the Balrog again, slaying it, but his life faded. Ilúvatar's will brought him back, not as Gandalf the Grey, but as Gandalf the White. His power renewed, his purpose clear. His return was a sign of the music's endurance, a proof that light can pierce the darkest shadow. Gandalf's sacrifice was a fire burning away doubt, kindling hope. In Rohan, he freed Theoden from Saruman's lies, restoring a king to his people. In Minas Tirith, he stood against the Witch King, his staff a beacon, his voice a challenge. At the Black Gate, he fought beside Aragorn, his heart fixed on Frodo's quest. Gandalf's tale is one of sacrifice, of giving all for others, of trusting in the music. Though the path is dark, in his fire we see our own moments of surrender, when we lay down our fears, our pride, ourselves, for the sake of those we love. Hope is the light that loss cannot quench, the note that holds against the discord. In the darkness of Shelob's lair, when Frodo lay bound and Sam stood alone, he looked up and saw a star. Its light was not his, yet it pierced the gloom, reminding him of a beauty beyond Sauron's reach. That star was hope, not as a promise, but as a truth, that even in the deepest shadow, something endures. Sam's hope was not for himself, but for Frodo, for the world they fought to save. In Mordor, when the ring's weight crushed Frodo, Sam spoke of the Shire of Spring, of the tales that would be told. His was the hope of the humble, the faith of the gardener, who plants seeds he may never see bloom. Hope was not Sam's alone. In the siege of Gondor, when the gates fell and the Witch King loomed, Gandalf stood, his staff a beacon defying despair. In the skies above, the eagles came not to win the war, but to bear witness to hope's defiance. In Minas Tirith, the white tree bloomed, a sign that life endures beyond the shadow. In the Shire, when Frodo sailed west, Sam planted Galadriel's seed, and a golden tree grew, a symbol of renewal. These moments, small and great, are the threads of Ilúvatar's music, weaving harmony where discord reigned. The Ainulindale was not a single song, but an eternal one, its notes echoing in every act of courage, every choice to hope. The Silmarils lost to fire, sea, and earth shine still in the heart of those who seek beauty. Their light borne by Eärendil, who sails the heavens as a star. The rings unmade or hidden teach us the peril of dominion, but also the power of sacrifice, for Frodo's choice to bear the ring was a hope against despair. The heroes, Frodo, Sam Aragorn, Galadriel, Bilbo, Gandalf, show us the cost of courage, the weight of faith, the strength to endure, though the heart breaks. Hope is the heart of Middle-earth, the strength that does not seek power, but trusts in the turning of the world. It is the light of Eärendil's star shining above the world, a Silmaril born by a mortal who defied the Valar's ban. It is the pity of Bilbo, who spared Gollum, setting in motion the ring's destruction. It is the love of Arwen, who chose mortality for Aragorn, embracing loss for hope. It is the fire of Gandalf, who fell and rose a beacon against the shadow. In these tales we see our own striving, our own stars, our own moments when we choose to believe though the shadow looms. What then of Sauron's spirit? Does it wander still, a wraith gnawing itself in the shadows, as Gandalf foretold in The Return of the King? His fall was final, his power dissolved, his form unmade. The towers of Barad-dûr fell, their stones scattered like tears into the dust. The black gate crumbled, the towers of the Teeth swayed and broke, and a great wind carried the shadow away. Yet as a mire his essence cannot perish. It lingers diminished to a vanishing point, a memory of malice. Perhaps it drifts in the wastes of Mordor, where the air is heavy with the memory of despair, where the ground is cracked with the heat of forgotten fires. Perhaps it haunts the edges of our world, for Middle-earth is our earth, its tales woven into the fabric of our history, its shadows lingering in the places where we dare to dream. Tolkien mused in Morgoth's Ring that a mire reduced to impotence might become a poltergeist, a weak spirit stirring the air with whispers of spite, moving objects in the dark, making noises to unsettle the unwary. A poltergeist is a restless thing, a shadow of intent. But Gandalf's words suggest a deeper silence, a powerlessness so complete that Sauron cannot act, only endure. His spirit is a wraith bound to the shadows, watching as the world turns without him, cursed by the freedom he could not abide. His torment is eternal, for he sought to impose order, to bind the chaos of Arda's children, and now he witnesses their liberty, their joy, their dance, a world that moves beyond his grasp, a symphony he cannot silence. The Silmarillion offers another possibility, a whisper from the lore of the Eldar that Sauron followed Melkor down into the void, a chasm beyond the stars where the first Dark Lord was thrust after the War of Wrath. In the First Age, when Melkor stole the Silmarils and waged war on Beleriand, and the Valar came their host, a storm of light. Tulkas wrestled Melkor Manwë's winds bound him, and he was cast into the void, a realm of nothingness to await the world's end. To imagine Sauron there is to see a fate of eternal exile, a silence deeper than any he knew in Barad-dûr, a darkness where no light reaches. Yet the void is not a place but a state, the absence of Ilúvatar's light, the emptiness of a soul turned from the music. The void is a mystery, its nature hidden even from the Valar. Is it a prison, a chasm where the fallen languish, or is it a metaphor, a shadow of the heart that rejects the flame? Imperishable Sauron's spirit, whether in Mordor or beyond, is bound to this void, not by the Valar's decree, but by his own choices. He sought to be a god, to order the world, to silence the chaos of freedom, and in his failure he became nothing. His is the fate of all who cling to power, to wander formless in a world they cannot touch, to gnaw themselves in the shadows, tormented by the light they forsook. Yet the Elders' lore, as told in the Silmarillion, is not without question. The book was woven by Christopher Tolkien from his father's notes, a tapestry unfinished, lacking J.R.R. Tolkien's final blessing. The phrase "down into the void" may be a poetic flourish, a way to say Sauron followed Melkor's path of ruin, his heart descending into darkness. The Eldar, too, are not infallible. Their tales are shaped by memory, by sorrow, by the bias of those who loved the light. Relying on The Lord of the Rings, published in Tolkien's lifetime, we see a clearer fate. Sauron's spirit is condemned to drift aimless and powerless, a wraith in Middle-earth not cast out, but left behind a shadow that cannot grow or take shape. The world turns, and the music endures a song that weaves through the ages, unbroken by shadow, unsilenced by despair. In the tales of Middle-earth we find not the end but the beginning, a mirror of the soul's journey, a map of the heart's striving. The Silmarils lost to fire, sea and earth shine still in the heart of those who seek beauty, their light borne by Eärendil, who sails the heavens as a star, a beacon for the lost. The rings unmade or hidden teach us the peril of dominion, but also the power of sacrifice, for Frodo's choice to bear the ring was a hope against despair, a note in the music that Sauron could not silence. The heroes, Frodo, Sam, Aragorn, Galadriel, Bilbo, Gandalf, Finrod, show us the cost of courage, the weight of faith, the strength to endure though the heart breaks. Sauron, even in his ruin, speaks to us, a shadow that mirrors our own fears, our own temptations, our own dreams of control. His spirit wanders, not to haunt us, but to remind us the darkness we resist is within, as is the light we carry. His fall is a warning, a tale of pride that sought to bind the world and found only silence, a legacy of ash scattered on the wind. Yet his tale is not the end, for the music is greater, its harmony woven through every act of pity, every spark of hope, every choice to stand, though the shadow looms. In the end, there is no resolution, only revelation, a truth that dawns like starlight on a darkened sea. The question, whither wanders the spirit of Sauron, is not answered, but sung a note in the music that lingers beyond the tale, a melody that hums in the silence. We stand as Aragorn did at the edge of the known, gazing into the shadow, our swords drawn, our hearts trembling, yet resolute. We walk as Frodo did, bearing burdens we cannot name, the weight of duty pressing upon our souls, the whisper of temptation ever near. We hope as Sam did for a star to guide us, a light that pierces the gloom, a truth that endures beyond the reach of despair. So let the wind carry Sauron's whisper, a faint echo of malice that fades before the dawn. Let the stars bear Frodo's sorrow, a weight that sails west to find healing in the light of Valinor. Let the earth hold Sam's hope, a seed planted in the Shire, a golden tree that blooms where shadow once fell. Let the fire of Gandalf burn a beacon against the dark, a sacrifice that kindles courage in the hearts of the weary. Let the songs of the elves linger, their voices fading in the forests, their light a memory that guides us still. The tale is not ended, but woven anew in every heart that dares to love, to lose, to hope, to walk the path, though the end is unseen. We, the children of Ilúvatar, are wanderers, our steps a song, our lives a tale fading into the memory of the stars. We carry the light of Middle-earth, not as a flame to wield, but as a star to follow, a hope that burns, though the night is long. Sauron's spirit wanders not in triumph, but in torment, a shadow fleeing the light it could never understand, a wraith bound to the silence it sought to impose. But we walk on, our hearts attuned to the music, our eyes fixed on the stars, our hands open to the world we cannot control. The journey is not to conquer, but to endure, to carry the light through the dark, to sing the song, though the world grows still. Fellow wanderers of Middle-earth, you who hear the call of the stars, who feel the weight of the tales woven in Arda's heart, we invite you to join our fellowship, to walk with us through the paths of lore where the light of Ilúvatar shines still. Subscribe to our channel where the songs of Middle-earth are sung anew, where the stories of courage, sacrifice and hope are woven into the tapestry of our days. Click the bell that you may be summoned when new tales are told, when the fires of Minas Tirith burn bright, when the winds of Rohan carry the horns of hope. Share your thoughts. Below, what burdens do you carry? What stars guide your path? What songs do you sing in the shadow? Let us gather as the fellowship did, to keep the light of Middle-earth burning, a beacon against the darkness. a flame that warms the heart. Together we will explore the depths of Tolkien's world, from the forging of the Silmarils to the fall of Barad-dûr, from the pity of Bilbo to the fire of Gandalf. We will wander the forests of Lothlorien, where Galadriel's wisdom lingers, and the plains of Rohan, where Éowyn's courage broke the Witch King's spell. We will climb the slopes of Mount Doom, where Frodo's sacrifice unmade the ring, and sail the seas to Valinor, where the elves find rest. Our channel is a haven, a firelit hall where the tales of Middle-earth are told, where the music of Ilúvatar echoes in every heart. Join us and let us sing the songs of old, the songs of hope, the songs that defy the shadow. Until the next tale, farewell, fellow. Explorers of Arda May, the wind under your wings bear you where the sun sails and the stars are bright, where the light of Eärendil guides you, and the music of Ilúvatar sings in your soul. Go now and carry the light, for the world is wide, and the journey is not yet done.